On today's show, the Miami Heat take finals game 2 against the Denver Nuggets, and even the series 1 game apiece. How were they able to take control of this game in the fourth quarter and close things out? Jimmy Butler as a facilitator, and have the Miami Heat found the answer to guarding Nikola Jokic and slowing down the Denver Nuggets offense? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Next game, how about Nikola Jokic to score more than 26.5 points? What about Bam Adebayo to have less than 10.5 rebounds? How about Jimmy Butler to have more than 6.5 assists? Or what about Jamal Murray to have less than 3.5 three-pointers made? So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players, but they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's the NBA Finals, NFL, MLB, NHL. They've got you covered for everything. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. And right now, during the finals, one PrizePicks user will win a chance at becoming a millionaire. But you have to download the app to find out how. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Heat, David Ramil. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts, and on YouTube, just search Locked On Heat. And David, the Miami Heat earn a hard-fought 111-108 finals game 2 win, handing the Nuggets their first home court loss of the postseason. Denver led in this game going into the fourth quarter, 83-75. How was Miami to take control there in the fourth and close out for this game 2 win?
Well, they adjusted their defense a little bit. They took advantage of the non-Jokic minutes the way they had it in the first half of the game. And Duncan Robinson provided a hell of a spark. Bam Adebayo was also very, very good. And they got the Nuggets into foul trouble early on. So they were in the bonus and were able to continue to attack aggressively. They got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to bite at a couple up fakes. He also fouled Kyle Lowry from behind a three-point line. So it was a combination of different things. And then, of course, they were able to withstand a furious Nuggets comeback in the last couple of minutes of the game as well. Able to hang on, close it out, and win on the road. You get the split. That's as good as you could possibly hope for.
The defense really was so impressive. Look, Jokic did have 41 points. It felt like he had to work hard for that 41, though. And then on top of that, limiting him to just 4 assists through a combination of blitzing, running the zone against Jokic, which I thought was really genius. I mean, has Spo maybe found the recipe for success in guarding Nikola Jokic?
I think it works in one game, but you trust that the Nuggets can come up with something else. This is a very different game plan for both teams in game 2 than it was in game 1. And the Nuggets, I think, are good enough. And Jokic is so talented that he can kill you from a number of ways. I thought the attack strategy going into the series might be to let Jokic get his and make sure you limit those kind of passes because he's so good at finding cutters, finding guys from the perimeter, et cetera. And I think they did that to a certain degree, much more effectively, certainly, than they did in game 1. I don't know if it's something that they can continue to sustain. At the same time, again, I think the Nuggets can find little tweaks here and there. They struggle a little bit from their three-point shooting, not that much, but Miami got some incredibly hot shooting. You never want to rely on those kinds of things yet. This is exactly what Miami's done. If they can get some hot shooting going, drag the game a little bit the way they did in the fourth quarter, that keeps things even enough where they can mount these comebacks. They've done it throughout the whole postseason. So it might just be the recipe, but at the same time, I don't know how sustainable it is.
Miami had the hot shooting in this game, which is maybe a bit hard to replicate over the course of, trying to win 4 games. But a big reason for some of the shots that they were getting was Jimmy Butler with the drive and kick game in this one. 9 assists, only 1 turnover. How impressed were you with his ability to just generate offense for the Heat over the course of this game?
Well, that's just Jimmy. Still a little concerned about his offensive approach in terms of Not looking for his shot. I thought he'd need to kind of step that up a little bit for Miami to have a much better chance, but he still commands so much respect on those drives. I'm glad you pointed it out. And as a playmaker, he's still so underrated, and he's been very, very good at finding other players. And they were able to capitalize on a lot of those opportunities. You saw a lot of wide open looks, whether it was Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, anybody else from the perimeter, and they were able to capitalize. So Jimmy, as a playmaker, has certainly been a strong weapon for Miami, and I would expect that to be the case moving forward too.
How much are we maybe attributing the lack of aggression from Jimmy, if you will, offensively, to just overall fatigue? Because there was even a play late in the game. Jokic gets the offensive rebound, kicks it out to Jamal Murray, and Jimmy saw this developing in real time, and he jogged out to Jamal Murray when he drilled that 3-pointer off that kick out. And I kind of sat there thinking to myself, man, that's not like Jimmy to jog out to a 3-pointer in crunch time of a finals game. So how much of this are we just going to attribute to fatigue at this point for Jimmy?
I don't know how much fatigue is a factor, because we've seen Jimmy kind of rise to the occasion, especially in fourth quarters throughout the whole postseason run. But I think the lingering impact of the ankle injury is still there. He's just not explosive. He's not able to get to his spots. His jumper seems a little flat. Even on his 3-point attempts, of which he hit a couple today, especially one big one down the stretch, he's kind of flailing his legs a little bit, kicking out a little bit, trying to look for a little bit just extra lift, because he just doesn't have it. So maybe it's a combination of things. He's been tasked with so much offensively, defensively, as a playmaker, and then to be able to be the Miami's top scorer as well, as they're looking for him to be. I think it's just too much for him to handle right now. And look, there are no excuses. He'll never point to the injury as a reason for why he's struggling offensively. At the same time, he did just enough to kind of power through it.
Bam Adebayo in this game was a tale of two halves, whatever cliche you want to throw at it, right? First half, settling for a lot of jumpers, even over smaller defenders, didn't really look aggressive, then goes off in the second half. What was the biggest difference, aside from just kind of the aggression in how Bam played in the two halves, do you think, in this game?
Well, I think they kind of used him differently in the pick and roll a little bit. He was working with Max Strus pretty effectively. A lot of give and goes there. The synergy between him and Duncan has been so effective. And as with Miami's 3-point shooting being so stellar, it opened up so much more space for him to attack. They caught Denver unaware on a lot of mismatches. He was able to find the seams in the defense and just attack much more aggressively. But it's all the little things that Bam does. As much as his scoring is going to be a focus, I hope that fans across the nation can appreciate what he brings to the table, because he's just such a good screen setter. He does so much in the rebounding end as a playmaker, as a defender. There he is picking up Jamal Murray. There he is picking up Nikola Jokic on separate possessions. And he just does it all for this Miami Heat team in a way that I don't think a lot of people appreciate, because the counting stats don't really pop out much. He doesn't do much in that regard, not necessarily in terms of all their all-stars, and yet it's all the different little aspects of the game that he's so good at contributing to and making a strong impact for. And I think we're seeing that on the biggest stage.
We're going to have to start counting Bam Adebayo screen assists. Shout out to our fearless leader, David Locke, and his affinity for screen assists. Last one here for you, David. Kevin Love played 22 minutes, returned to the lineup, but was plus 18 in his time for the Heat. What did his return really unlock or do for Miami in this game?
A little bit more spacing, obviously. Caleb Martin has been shooting very well, although he struggled in game one, continues to struggle in game two. So I think Love is just a more natural threat from the 3-point line. Obviously, you saw a couple of his outlet passes opening things up for Miami, and he just draws a defender out, so allows Jimmy or Bam to attack the paint. Not as they were hitting a lot, but I think it just creates a little bit more balance offensively. His rebounding was pretty solid. He was also another big that they could stash onto Aaron Gordon. I like the way that he was defending as well, at least that he was kind of sagging off Aaron Gordon, leaving him to the corner a little bit, providing that help defense, especially in the first half when Nikola Jokic was trying to be a little bit more aggressive as a scorer, and creating that kind of space where he's a body between Jokic and those 3-point shooters, limiting those passes out to the perimeter. So I think he did a really, really good job considering his age and everything else. He's still a positive factor. They look much more comfortable when Love out in the lineup. I thought going into the series that Caleb should have been the starter just because he was playing so well and against the Boston Celtics. But considering that he's sick and that he might be a little bogged down by injury too, he just hasn't been as much of a factor as he was in the Eastern Conference Finals. Put Kevin Love out there. It's a plus factor whenever he's out there. You don't have to put him out there for a lot of minutes. In fact, I'd like to see him even more, though, because the Cody Zeller minutes are almost unwatchable from the Heat perspective. So put Love in there as a backup center and have him go to work a little bit. I think that will be the strategy moving forward. I'm curious to see how both teams respond in game 3.
Miami takes game 2 in the finals. How do things develop as the series shifts down to South Beach? For a full breakdown on this game and more, you'll have us covered over at Locked On Heat. David, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Anytime.